Hello everyone, welcome to my shop. In this video I'm going to be installing a Rival 4x4 aluminum skid plate on my 2024 Ford Ranger. My Ranger happens to be an XLT, but this skid plate fits all of the 2024 and up 6th gen Ford Rangers, including the Raptor. It should also fit the 2-door and 4-door Broncos starting from I think 21 and up. So this truck is not an FX4, so I do not have any factory skid plates on it. If you had an FX4 or a Raptor, you'd have to remove the factory skid plate. I'll go over that when I get the vehicle in the air, but should be a pretty easy install. It's only a couple of bolts. I'm going to get the truck up in the air, get some lights underneath, and we'll get started. Included with the kit is the skid plate as well as a trapdoor for doing oil changes and hardware. There should be 4 bolts, 4 washers, and 2 spacers. Now that I've got the vehicle up in the air, as I said, my vehicle is just a sport model, so I have no factory skid plates. If you have a FX4 or Raptor, you will have a steel shield here as well as the factory steel shield here. All the other ones just have a plastic shield. For this install, we're going to be removing either this skid plate or this plastic shield. There are 2 bolts up here at the front that you're going to have to completely remove. There are also 3 bolts back here that we're going to completely remove for this install. These are 15 millimeter. I'm going to go ahead, get an impact wrench, and get all 5 of those bolts out. Real quick, I have removed the 5 bolts that I had mentioned. Turns out there's actually one additional one. If you've got the plastic shield holding, you've got a little recessed one here. There's actually one up in a hole here. You have to remove this one as well to get the plastic shield off. Before I install the skid plate I'm going to actually go ahead and get the front 2 pieces of hardware started. If you had the factory steel skid plate, this would be dangling a little bit. In my case, I've got the plastic one, it's dangling a little bit. You're going to take the supplied bolt and washer. It does not call for it, but I'm going to use a little bit of blue Loctite. It will help with limiting corrosion up in the threads for whenever I have to take this off in the future. It also will just help make sure that this doesn't come loose. Blue would be the way to go. You don't want to use red. Red requires heat to remove, so just a little bit of blue Loctite. You don't need a ton. So I'm just going to go ahead and start these. So the 2, you've got this one that's kind of a lower height on this side, and then the one on the far side. I'm not going to be replacing the one in the middle. I'm going to retain that hardware in case I ever need it in the future, but that bolt is just was just helping hold that piece of plastic. It's not securing anything else. All right, now that I have the 2 bolts started, the front bolts the front parts of the skid are slotted. This is meant to go under the plastic or under the factory skid plate, so I'm going to go ahead and get that up into place. Once that's up, I can work on installing the rear. If you are installing any of the other Rival or any other skid plates, you do not need to use the spacer in the back, but because I don't have those yet, I am going to be installing a spacer in the back underneath or between the skid and the cross member on both sides. Again, I'm using a little bit of blue Loctite here. As I said, it'll help with corrosion and make sure that none of this vibrates loose. So I'm going to go ahead, get spacer installed, and get the hardware started on both sides first. Once you get all the hardware started, you can go back through and torque all the fasteners. The factory torque spec from Ford for these bolts that we removed is 26 foot-pounds or 35 newton meters. Rival in their instructions calls for 35 foot-pounds, which is 47 newton meters. At this point, I'm only going to go to the factory Ford spec of 26 foot-pounds, 35 newton meters. I am going to double check with Rival as to why they increased the torque spec. For me, anyways, because I've got this plastic shield here instead of the steel one, I don't know that I'd actually be able to go to the Rival spec anyways. So again, just go ahead and tighten these up after you make sure everything's kind of centered. After installing the 4 mount bolts, the last thing you're going to want to just do to double check, make sure that it came tight from the factory. There are 2 bolts that hold on the oil drain window. They are 4 millimeter hex. You want to just make sure that those are in fact tight. I don't have a torque spec, but they should just be good and tight. And actually this one here actually was definitely a little loose. So just snug those up, 4mm hex. And that's it for the install. Super easy. It's only 4 bolts. You got to remove up to 6 if you've got the plastic shield. This is an aluminum skid plate. Obviously, it's probably not meant if you're going to be doing some real serious hardcore rock crawling, which you probably shouldn't be in a Ranger anyways. But in my case, where I'm trying to keep the vehicle fairly light for overlanding and towing purposes, and minor off-road use, that aluminum skid plate is going to be more than enough. I will be doing other videos. I do have the rest of the rival skid plates on order, as well as a factory front steel skid plate. Once I get all those, I'll be doing other videos for the install of those. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.